Hi, I'm Jonathan Duffy from Kettering Health, and welcome to Pathways to Mental Wellbeing, a journey from worry to wellness. Each week, we are going to have a health professional speak to you about an issue relating to stress and then give you coping mechanisms. Each session will take around 10 minutes roughly to introduce the issue and then to give you some coping skills. But my job today is to give you an overview of stress management that will set the framework for what's coming forward. You know, as soon as we say the word stress, many thoughts go through our mind. Some of us think of worry, stress, anxiety, depression, all sorts of negative things. But the reality is that stress is purely a response to a stimulus. And I hope that throughout this session that you will remain somewhat stimulated. As I drone on, your response might slow slightly as the oxygen levels deplete and you feel a little sleepy, but hopefully you won't do away with stress completely because the carbon dioxide levels build up and that triggers you to breathe out and take in oxygen. We are always responding to stress as long as we're awake and alive. And so when we look at stress, really, we tend to think of it more as an issue of distress when we think of the negative aspects of it. So stress is really a response to a stimulus. So if we are put into a threatening situation, our body automatically goes into a fight or flight mode. So I'm put into a situation, I'm walking across the street, I see a Big Mac truck bearing down upon me. I think to myself, I could give this truck my best left hook, but the only mark that would be left on it later could be hosed off. So I choose the flight mode. But what do I do when I'm in a work situation or a family situation when stress is mounting? Because I can't just get up and beat everyone up. That's very socially unacceptable. I can't just get up and start parading up and down the room and talking away and everyone says, what's the matter with you? Well, look, it's this conversation that's giving me stress. I've either got a flight or I've got a fight. And they say, well, just punch me. It would be short. You're driving me crazy parading up and down the room like that. So how do we deal with this? So to put it in perspective, let's look at the relationship towards stress and our normal performance. So if we look at our stress levels and our performance levels, often what we do is this is really related more like what we call a bell curve. So when we look at it, we always talk of this negative factor where when I'm under too much stress, I'm spending all this energy and vitality, but I'm not really getting anything. I've lost my productivity and now it's just burning me out. And in fact, that's the term that we give to this side of it, burnout. And we're always talking about burnout. But if you look at the other side of the graph, what you will find is that if I'm understimulated, my performance is also diminished. Now, I've coined that term rust out. You've heard that saying, use it or lose it. So we need a certain amount of motivation and stimulation to get us going, to make us productive, but we don't want too much. And in the middle here is this narrow little framework called eustress or good stress. Now you look at how narrow that is and you think no matter how skinny you are, you're not going to fit in that perfect little area there. And the reality is we often put ourselves on a lot of stress by thinking, I have to have this right balance. The truth is some things in the day will push you into burnout and some things will put you in rust out and understimulate you. And while we vacillate between the two, if the middle lies somewhere in the middle, then I'm doing okay. So the problem is when it's all skewed to one side, either I'm overstimulated or I'm understimulated, that's when the problem is. The natural thing is that we experience different levels of burnout and rust out during the day. So I want you to imagine your body's a tank. Now, my original degree was physical education. I always dreamed that one day someone would tell me that I'm built like a tank. It seemed to be a great compliment. But I'm not talking of that kind of tank. A Sherman tank where you just go and blast things away that get in your worry. I'm thinking more like a rainwater tank. Being an Australian, we have these rainwater tanks in the outback. They're always made out of corrugated iron. And so we'll call this your stress tank. Now, every day pouring into your stress tank is this whole series of what we call psychosocial stressors. Now, you're all familiar with what social stressors are. Social stressors are just your interaction with people, things that come up during the day, other factors that require a stimulus and a response from you. But what about these psychological stressors? You think, well, my neighbor has that, or maybe my workmate has that, but not me. The reality is we all have psychological stressors. we've all placed different expectations upon ourselves. So the stressor doesn't have to be real to me. I wish I was a better father. I wish I was a more productive worker. I want to be a better Christian. I want to be this. I want to be that. We place all sorts of expectations upon ourselves. So those real or imagined or self-imposed stressors, as well as the events that are occurring during the day, are all pouring in and filling our tanks. Now, we all have a different size tank. Now, I don't want you to think like, your body's a tank and we all have different size tanks. So, okay, look, a bit more stress. I'll have a few more Oreo cookies. I might be getting fatter, but I'm happy my tank is bigger. So those aren't the sort of size of the tank of what we're talking about. So what factors affect the size of our tank? Part of that is our personalities. We all react to the same stimulus different. What is a burnout to you may be a rust out to me. What is stressful to you or distress to you may be good stress to me. So we all react differently according to our different personalities. Another factor that determines the size of our tank is family. Family can be a great source of support, but sometimes it can be a source of frustration. Sometimes I have this expectation, I wish you would just do this for me. And then I'm frustrated that they're not doing those things, but I've never taken the time to educate them. I come home from work a bit grumpy, and when I should maybe head out the door and go for a walk, or I just want to sit and vegetate for a quarter of an hour to get my mind straight, if I walk in and I say, look, I've had a really bad day. I need to go for a walk to burn off some of the stress. I just need to sit and vegetate. If you can give me 15 minutes, then I'm ready to engage. You see, the family wants to support, but often they don't know how to support. So how do we build a strong family unit around us? The other aspect of it is friends, community. Often when we're stressed, we cut people out of our lives. The very people who we need in our lives are the ones that we exclude. I'm too busy. I don't do things. You ring up, say, oh, we're all going somewhere tonight. I can't go. I've got a project and it's due tomorrow or whatever else. And so we exclude ourselves from our friends. But our friends are really important. In the Bible, it talks about the paralytic who wanted to be healed by Jesus and he couldn't get there. So what happened was his friends picked up a corner of his bed and they took him and they removed the roof tiles and they laid him down in front of Jesus to be healed. Who are the 4 people in your life that would pick up a corner of your bed if you needed them to? Keep them close, keep them in your life. Remember, we need friends. Also, my personal health determines my ability to cope with stress. When I'm always tired and exhausted, when I'm always battling fatigue, when I'm always got a cold or a flu or something else and aches and pains, I don't cope so well. My health is a vital part of this as well. And also my spirituality. Sometimes I think that we worship the omnipotent God, the God of power, come and create a miracle to make my problems go away, when what I need is the omnipresent God. Because for me, in my faith journey, what I find is my faith is what actually gives me the strength to carry on. God is there in the storm with me. He is my refuge in storm. He gives me the comfort, the strength to be able to go forward. And my spirituality helps me and enlarges my tank. But I don't care how big your tank is. If there's no release to this tank, then eventually it's going to overflow. And what we see this resulting effect of physical and or mental ill health. All these effects of the stress and the hormones of stress deplete my body's immune system. I get run down. I get tired. I get more colds, flus. I'm more vulnerable to different diseases. There's even links with stress and cancers. And so, we know that no matter how big our tank is, whether it takes us 2 seconds or 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months, if there's no release, eventually it's going to overflow. But the challenge is we tend to focus on trying to manage all these things, these psychosocial stressors that are pouring into my tank, when in reality I'm trying to fight something that I can't fight and I can't keep them out. So what are the things that I actually have control over is my tank needs a faucet. And so for me, I need to focus on the things that can open that faucet. Those are the things that are in my control. The things that happen in the day that create stress to me, I can't always control, but I can open the tap. The challenge is that when we are under stress, we tend to focus more on the negative things and we tend to self-destruct. So if you're a smoker, you smoke more. If you drink alcohol, you drink more. We tend to eat And some people would turn to different drugs, prescription and others, for coping mechanisms. It's interesting amongst Christians, if you look at the studies, health outcomes for Christians are much stronger in every aspect. Their prayer life, you see links with less chronic diseases, faster recovery from health events, everything else. But Christians are more obese than the general population because when it comes to self-destruction, eating is more acceptable for us than getting drunk or to do drugs. So we all tend to self-destruct a little bit. So what sort of things help us to open this faucet? This is where things like exercise come into play because the fight or flight response is natural hormones, tension and muscles in the body that when I go for a walk, it tends to burn them up and neutralize some of the physical effects of the stress. Relaxation, how many of you practice relaxation techniques? I'm not talking about sitting down and watching TV or reading a book. I'm talking about learning to understand and detect tension in your body, to control your breathing, to release the tension, and learn how to bring your body into a relaxed state. Other factors, hobbies or interests. Do you have an interest outside of work, something that you do just because it gives you pleasure, something which regenerates you? It may be a stressor, but it can be a good stressor. Do you take the time to do something which is fun and enjoyable and creative that's just for you? Other factors are nutrition. When we're under stress, we tend to snack, we don't eat properly, we eat high sugar foods, so sugar burns off quickly. So my energy is great, but then it drops and then I need something else and I find myself snacking throughout the day. When I eat whole foods, full grains and fruits and vegetables, what happens is the energy is released slowly and constantly, and my emotions tend to be more stable as well. But then in addition to all of these other lifestyle factors are life skill factors. Factors like time management, problem solving, conflict resolution skills, communication skills, so that when the stressor arises, I can meet it and resolve it before it becomes a distress in the first place. So in reality, we can't control the things that are filling our tank, but we can control the things that actually open that faucet and drain the tank. We're not going to be able to do everything, so what is one thing that you could focus upon? In John 10:10, it talks about the fact that the thief comes only to steal and destroy, but I come that you may have life and have it in abundance. If you take the F out of life, what are you left with? You're left with a lie. And many of us are living a lie. In corporate speaking, I surveyed over 50,000 corporate executives, secular people. What would you put back into your life, starting with F again, that would stop the lie and restore the life? And the four main factors that they have chosen is I would make more time for family. No one dies wishing they'd spent less time with family. I would make more time for friends. I'd put more fun things into my life, and I would put faith into my life, which is interesting for corporate executives because what the faith does is it gives you meaning and purpose to your existence, and that's what we're looking for. So how do we prevent the lie and restore the life? That's what this series is going to bring us through. The steps and the journeys of how to address the stressors and learn good coping skills so that we no longer are living a lie, but we can experience a life and in the abundance which God has for you. So I wish you all the best as you go throughout this series. I'm sure that you will find it very challenging at times as you confront some of your own emotions, but I'm sure if you take the messages and the strategies given, that you will find an abundance of life that you're not experiencing currently. So thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best going forward in this program.